Ever find yourself, while you're driving, maybe on the highway, thinking, whoa, that was a little close for comfort? Happens to all of us, right?
Yeah.
Turns out we're dodging these near misses way more often than we even realize.
It's true.
And that's actually why you've requested this deep dive into the future of car safety.
Absolutely.
Specifically, we're going to be talking about the really rapidly evolving world of virtual crash testing.
Right.
We've got some really interesting material to work with here today.
Yeah.
We're looking at technical documents from a European research project. It's called FlexCrash.
Okay.
And we also have some insights directly from Aerobase Innovations AB.
Interesting.
So before we jump into the digital crash test zone, let's set the stage a bit, talk about the real world.
Okay.
Crash tests themselves, they're kind of the unsung heroes of keeping our cars safe.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
They're essential, right?
Beyond just proving that a car can withstand an impact, crash tests are really the cornerstone of vehicle safety regulations on a global scale.
Yeah.
They provide the data that dictates how cars are designed, how they're built. It's all about protecting us.
And that brings us to the limitations of those real-world crash tests, because it's incredibly resource-intensive to be staging these basically controlled collisions, right?
Yeah,
Not to mention the number of scenarios you can practically test is limited.
for sure.
You can only crash so many cars.
Yeah,
That's where this really interesting promise of virtual crash testing comes in,
precisely. Yeah.
because that offers us the potential to be faster, more cost-effective, and just way more versatile than traditional methods.
And that is exactly the frontier that FlexCrash is exploring.
I am all for less mangled metal if it means safer cars, so tell me more about what makes FlexCrash unique.
So FlexCrash, you can really think of it as this kind of convergence of lighter, safer, and more sustainable car design.
Oh,
So
yeah.
We're talking about using green aluminum alloys. These are often composed of over 80% recycled materials, which is really cool. And the integration of groundbreaking manufacturing techniques like 3D printing car parts.
Wow. This is incredibly relevant to, I know, our listeners and their interest in resource efficiency.
For sure.
Now, this next part is where it gets really fascinating for me. We're talking about recreating the physics of a car crash inside of a computer.
Right.
How do you even begin to do that?
It's really complicated.
How do you teach an algorithm about crumpled metal?
It's a complex challenge, to say the least, and that's where Aerobase Innovations comes in.
Okay.
They're developing the software within FlexCrash that's really focused on accurately predicting how all these different materials behave during a crash.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the biggest hurdles is understanding how even microscopic variations in the material structure can really dramatically influence its strength.
So something as tiny as like a microscopic flaw in the metal could actually change how a car crumples in a crash.
Precisely.
Wow.
So Aerobase is using cutting-edge technology, including this high-resolution form of X-ray imaging. It's called micro-CT scanning.
Okay.
And they're basically using this to map out those tiny imperfections within a metal structure. And then all that data gets fed into their simulations to help predict potential weak points that might lead to a component failing during an impact.
That's incredibly detailed work.
It is.
It sounds like. But Aerobase isn't going at it alone here, right?
All right.
FlexCrash is a collaborative effort.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Collaboration is woven into the DNA of FlexCrash.
This collaborative aspect is so fascinating to me. It seems like more than just a buzzword in this case.
Yeah, it really is. It's fundamental to what FlexCrash is trying to achieve,
Okay.
Think about the complexities we're talking about here. You've got these advanced materials, you've got these manufacturing processes, and then the challenge of accurately translating all of that into a virtual simulation. No single organization has the expertise to cover all of those bases at such a high level.
That makes a lot of sense. So collaboration is key. But what are we working toward here? What kind of future is FlexCrash driving us toward?
Imagine a world where virtual crash testing is so sophisticated, so accurate, so efficient, that physical crash tests become the exception, not the rule.
Wow. So are we saying goodbye to crash test dummies altogether then?
Perhaps not entirely, but the vision, the ultimate goal, is to reach a point where we can design, develop, and yes, even crash test vehicles entirely within a digital environment.
Wow.
This means shorter development cycles, it means reduced testing costs, and ultimately even safer vehicles on our roads, which I know is something you're interested in.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds incredibly promising. How realistic is this vision, though? Are we talking about something that's just a few years down the line, or is this further out?
That's the million-dollar question. But the pieces of the puzzle are aligning faster than you might expect. We've already witnessed just this exponential growth in computing power, and this trend shows absolutely no signs of slowing down.
Right, yeah, things are constantly evolving and improving, especially in the tech world.
Exactly, and beyond that, we're seeing these really remarkable breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, in machine learning, and these technologies are going to be essential for analyzing the massive amounts of data that these complex simulations generate, to further enhance their accuracy and their predictive power.
So are we talking about AI that could potentially design a car for us, optimizing it for safety from the ground up?
It's certainly within the realm of possibility. We're already seeing AI being used to design everything from like airplane wings to new drug compounds. It's not a huge leap to then envision it playing a significant role in car design in the near future.
That's both incredibly cool and a little bit daunting at the same time.
Hmm.
But I have to admit, the potential benefits here are huge. Faster development, safer cars, and we've got the environmental benefits to consider too, right?
Hmm.
Using fewer resources.
Absolutely. If we can create these virtual testing environments that truly mirror real-world crash scenarios, we can drastically reduce the number of physical prototypes and tests that are needed, which means less material waste, lower emissions, and ultimately a more sustainable approach to car manufacturing, which again aligns with your interest in efficiency.
Yeah, for sure. So it seems like Flex Crash is really at the forefront of a major transformation in the automotive industry. But it's not just about the technology itself, is it? We have these broader implications to consider,
You're exactly right. As we move towards a future where this virtual testing becomes the standard, we really need to carefully consider the ethical aspects as well.
such as, what are we talking about here?
Well, how do we guarantee that these virtual tests are genuinely representative of real-world conditions?
Hmm.
How do we account for all the variables, all the complexities that factor into a real-world crash?
That's a great point. And how do we determine when these virtual simulations are robust enough
No.
to fully replace real-world testing? I mean, we are talking about something incredibly important here, people's safety.
Precisely. And what about the data itself? These simulations generate huge, massive amounts of information. Who owns that data? How is it being used? How is it protected? These are all really crucial questions that we need to be addressing as this technology continues to evolve.
It's wild to think about. We're kind of on the verge of a future where algorithms are out there crashing cars, all in the name of making the roads safer for the rest of us. But as we've been talking about, it's not just about the technology, right?
All right.
There are these bigger ethical things to consider.
Yeah, precisely. And that's what I think makes this whole field so captivating. It's this fusion of really cutting-edge innovation and then these profound questions about how we shape the future of transportation.
And how much risk we're willing to accept, especially when we're talking about something as critical as safety.
Exactly. And it's not just even about the risk of a single virtual crash test, right?
Yeah.
It's about this bigger picture of, are we going to rely more heavily on these simulated environments? What if there's a flaw in the software that we didn't anticipate?
Yeah.
What if the simulations just don't capture something critical about real-world conditions?
Those are really important questions. It does feel like we're at this turning point, like there's no going back from virtual testing.
Yeah.
It's here to stay.
I think that's right, and I would argue that's a good thing. I mean, think about what this could allow us to do. We could be designing lighter cars, more fuel-efficient vehicles, without having to compromise on safety. We can test new safety features more quickly and cheaply. It has the potential to really save a lot of lives.
And we would be remiss to not mention the environmental benefits here. Crashing fewer physical cars, that's a win for sustainability.
Absolutely.
Something I know is important to you.
It is, for sure, but as with any powerful technology, I think we need to move forward with, with excitement, but also with some caution, right? We need to make sure the regulations are evolving as the technology does, make sure that all this data is being handled responsibly, and that we don't lose sight of the human beings at the center of all of this.
Because at the end of the day, it's about getting people where they need to go safely.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, there you have it, a deep dive into the world of virtual crash testing. From this really intricate technology to the much broader ethical questions it brings up. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot more informed
Uh-huh.
and maybe just a little more aware of those software updates on my car.
As you should be. Knowledge is power, after all.
Until next time, stay curious and buckle up.